Awesome, thank you. So a little bit of housekeeping. Closed captions are available in English and Spanish. Please take a look at following the link here to get to your closed captions if you needed a separate browser. It's https://ibr.news/captions. Next slide. If you're not able to see that, you can go ahead at the bottom of middle of your screen. You should be able to see a menu of options. And if you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen and click on the CC icon, and a separate window with captions will appear. Next slide. In an effort to continue to center equity in our program, there is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those of you watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but you may not see them. Next slide. Some quick tips for webinar participants. Thank you again for joining us today. Please join audio either by phone or computer, but not both. And we encourage panelists to turn on your video. Please keep your audio in mute when you are not speaking. And if you experience any technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. Next slide. For public input, there will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today around 5:45 on the agenda. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time with an option to turn on your web camera. Please use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or on the IBR CAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. To comment by phone, you can dial 1-669-900-6833 or 1-408-638-0968. You'll enter meeting ID number 993-5459-6043 with passcode 674942. You'll dial *9 to raise your hand, and after you are invited to speak, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Next slide. To submit public comment after the meeting, you can fill out a comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CAG Public Comment in the subject line. You can also call 360-859-0494 if you're in Washington, or 503-897-9218 in Oregon, or you can use our toll-free number, which is 888-503-6735, and state CAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CAG Public Comment in the subject line or body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to the advisory group members. We did not have any this month, CAG members, so you didn't receive any, but if any come in, we'll send them to you before the next meeting. So any comments received after will be distributed for our August meeting. Next slide. So just to set our space a little bit, we would like to remind ourselves we put relationships first, keep focused on our common goal. We will notice power dynamics in the room and create space for multiple truths and norms. We will be kind and brave, practice examining racially biased systems and processes, and look for learning. Next slide. So here's a brief overview of our agenda. We will move into welcome and some updates. Then we will have some discussion among CAG members in breakout rooms to discuss the people first approach to design that we were presented in June, and what will be important to you as an individual or organization as you reflect on some of those design components we've been discussing. We will then have a presentation from our urban design team our design team broadly, and then our urban design team focus. So we'll look at the aerial role map with a focus on Hayden Island and Expo Marine Drive. We'll have some time for Q&A, and then we'll move into that more specific urban design presentation for those two focus areas, as well as some discussion and Q&A, public comment towards the end of the meeting, and then we'll end with final thoughts. Next slide. So I will hand it over to Ed to welcome our CAG members.
All righty. I don't have a slide for that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, since I don't have a slide, I would just like to say welcome to everybody. Many of your faces, we haven't seem like we haven't seen each other for a while, but it's always a pleasure to see all of you, and it's always a pleasure to have you here, and appreciate so very much your time and commitment that you are giving to this organization and to this effort. And also like to say a special hello to Lynn Valenter, the other co-chair. She's had a chance to get away for a little bit. And as a friend of mine told me years ago, I'm sure that break, Lynn, was richly deserved. So that's all I have to say, but just good to see everybody, and especially my good friend Lynn. Pleasure to see you. So that's all I have to say, right?
Thank you,
Unless
Ed.
there's something. Okay. How much did I earn for that? No, I'm just kidding.
I'll run some numbers during the presentation for you.
All right. All right.
Jake, could you pull the slides back up briefly so we can share the check-in question, and then we'll pull them down as Lynn leads us through our introductions.
Sorry, have to unmute. So we're going to go around the table, and we're going to continue our tradition of calling on each other. And again, this is part of we are trying to restore some humanity into a Zoom process that has had all of us fairly closely related for the last 2.5 years. Is that embarrassing? But if you might go through and just share your name, organization at large, and pronoun, and how many non-humans live in your house, I will start. And then at some point, we'll likely need people to volunteer if we miss anybody. And this is just for the CAG members themselves. So I'm Lynn Valenter. I'm the Washington side of the river co-chair. My pronouns are she, her, and I have no known non-humans living in my house. So with that, I'm gonna, Sam, do you have a question before we get started, or were you just volunteering to go next?
I thought we were all supposed to raise our hands first, and then we're gonna put them down.
Oh, maybe
Yes.
you did that last time, and I didn't get the new efficiency. Okay, so I'm gonna call on Tom Hickey because he was the first one to have his hand up, and then we will go with our new approach. So thank you all.
I was looking forward to telling Lynn about the new approach by raising my hand first. My name is Tom Hickey. I speak for the North Portland neighborhoods on the CAG, and I have 2 cats in my house and at least 500 million ants. And that's all I got.
So my name is Sam Kim. I'm the super commuter. I live in Brush Prairie, Washington, and commute to Hillsboro, Oregon. Today was particularly bad on the Highway 26. There was a disabled vehicle. It took me an extra hour. It was pretty bad. So I have 1 cat in the house, and not quite 5 cats outside the house that seems to harass our cat.
Wow.
Irina, I think you're up next.
Okay, my name is Irina Phillips. I represent East European Coalition, people who speak Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian. And I'm not a super commuter. I just live in Northeast Portland, not very far from I-5 Rose Corridor. So my neighborhood will be affected by the construction and by the highway. And right now there are no non-human living in my household, but I usually have cats and dogs. They just do not live long, so everybody passed away. Okay, who is next? I think
Dorothy.
we can have Dorothy. Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Darcy Hoffman, she, her pronouns. I'm with Workforce Southwest Washington, representing the Columbia Willamette Workforce Collaborative. And I have 2 non-humans that live in my household, although I would argue that we live in their household. Martha.
I'm Martha Wiley, she, her pronouns, and at the moment, I'm not at home. We don't have non-humans living in our house at home, but we are visiting in Toronto, and this household has 2 cats who are lovely brothers. Yeah. So, and I'm a transit rider, and I am focused on getting the best transit possible across this bridge. Okay, Andrew, you next.
Thank you, Martha. Good afternoon, everybody. Andrew Hone, and since we last met, we changed our name. Portland Metro Chamber is the updated face forward of the organization, which we're very excited about. He, him pronouns. And in terms of the non-humans, no known non-humans. However, we have a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and 6-year-old, and depending on the day, they oftentimes act like non-humans. And so, hopefully today when I get home, they will be in human form. So with that, off to you, Julie.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Okay, oh wait, let's see here. So my name's Julie Dumbia. I live currently in Northeast Portland. During the project time, I moved from North Portland. So I've kind of experienced in both neighborhoods. And so I'm just in the community, and we're pretty close to project area, being right near I-5 to get anywhere. So anywhere else in the city. And as far as non-humans, we have a cat and a dog, and I definitely see ants quite a bit. I try to not see ants, but they just living in the neighborhood, you see ants. Okay, how about Michaela?
Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela Williams, and my pronouns are she, hers. I am an at-large community member representing the Washington side, and I have no non-humans living in my house. Unfortunately, I wish I did, but my parents do have 3 cats, and I spend much of my time playing with them. Oh, sorry. Let's go with Jeffrey.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. Jeffrey Temple. I am with Fred Meyer. He, him, his are my pronouns. And in our household, we have 2 guinea pigs. So wrap your head around that. We'll go with Brooke Pillsbury next.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brooke Pillsbury, she, her pronouns. I am representing Clark College, as well as a commuter from Northeast Portland to Vancouver, Washington. And I have 2 non-human pups in my house, as well as the avid houseplant collection, which feels like some mix between non-humans and a part-time job. So we'll go to Bill next.
Thank you. I'm Bill Prouse with the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs. We try to help small businesses grow. I've been a lifelong Northeast Portlander, except for a couple years in college when I went down to U of O. And he, him pronouns. And I have 1 dog, and we used to have some mice and a couple of rats in the garage, but they're gone now, thank goodness. And I don't think we have anything else, knock on wood. So, all right, how about Ben? You next.
Hi, my name is Ben Dinas. I'm an architect with the IBR Urban Design Team. We have 1 dog living in the house, but then we also have chickens and bees. So they're kind of part of the family, so that probably bumps it up to a few thousand. And I'll pass it to Sherry.
Good afternoon. Apologize, my camera's not on, but I'm mobile today. So Sherry Call, I am with the Washington Trucking Association representing freight. On the Washington side, our office is located in Olympia, Washington, and I have one non-human, very large cat living in my household. So good afternoon, thanks. I will pass it on to Jarina. Hopefully I got the name right.
Thank you. Yes, you actually did. I'm Jarina Hatch. I am the mobility manager at Community in Motion. We're a nonprofit medical transportation brokerage, non-emergency medical transportation brokerage. And that's in Vancouver, Washington. I live in Battleground, Washington. So, and actually kind of rural out there. So 2 dogs plus 1 who visits regularly, 2 cats who regularly bring home presents. And so I assume we have plenty of rodents in the area too. And the spiders like our bathroom. So yeah, that would be my collection of non-humans. How about I pass it to Shannon?
Thank you. I'm actually going to hand it to Tom because we're sticking to CAG members. But
Hi everyone, I'm Tom Osborne. I'm an architect for the IVR team. Yeah, my wife's a vet, so I've been successful in limiting her to 2 cats, which is actually one of them's there. Yeah, there's one of our non-humans. I'm going to pass it over to Ryan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Webb. I'm the engineering and planning manager for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. And this project is within the tribe ceded lands. In terms of non-humans in my household, we just have a cat and a dog, and they get along just like every other cat and dog normally gets along. And I'm going to hand it on to, well, I think that's it. I don't see any more hands up.
I think there's maybe Tom Sandwar.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Tom.
Not a problem, Ryan. Well, good evening, folks, or good afternoon. Tom Sandor here from Clark College. He, him pronouns. I live in Portland, Oregon, but I work in Vancouver, Washington, so I represent both sides of the spectrum. In terms of non-human, I do have 2 cats that get along fairly well, and about 1 million ants. Kind of like everyone else, it's hard to get rid of ants.
Well, thank you everyone for your participation and efficiency. That was kind of a win-win all around. And at this point in the program, I think it's an opportunity here to hear from our fearless leader, Greg Johnson, who has committed the slides to memory. Just kidding. Anyway, Greg, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. First off, I want to echo the comments of Ed Washington. This group and Lynn Valenter as well, this group has been together for a number of months. And we don't get to where we are in this program with the funding commitments from both states without the participation and the backing of the community. So this group has been tremendously important in bringing issues to the team and reviewing the work that we've done, giving us feedback on that work. So I want to personally thank everyone and make sure you know how important you are to the overall success of this program as we move forward. The key piece of news, and let me see, do I have some content slides? Let's go to the next one. The big piece of news is late last month, the Oregon legislature did pass a bill that committed $1 billion for the construction of the Interstate Bridge program. So this was a huge step. And once again, getting the local dollars committed. I'm not sure that the governor has signed the bill yet, but we have all indications that that is imminent. But we don't do that without the participation of this group, the Equity Advisory Group, the Executive Steering Group, all of the folks who give of their time to make this program a success. So once again, thank you. But this doesn't mean that the hard work is done. We have a tremendous amount of design work to move forward. You're going to see a lot of that tonight. Some of the efforts that our design team is making, you're going to get a chance to weigh in and make sure that that you are looking at what urban design will mean in this context and how we can make sure that as we design this project, that this is something that the community has had their voice in. So the next big steps, the federal government, U.S. Department of Transportation just opened the grant cycle for the mega grant program. So we will be putting in a robust grant application. We will be asking the community advisory group, if it is the will of this group, to submit a letter of support for that federal grant application. We will be asking individuals to submit letters of support. This is the time where the community, if they believe in this project, needs to make their voice heard as we are seeking those federal dollars. So this is the first of 3 big federal grants that we will be seeking. So all of the local dollars are now secured, and the federal dollars are generally the last dollars in. So we have to demonstrate once again that there is unity in this area to get this program underway and completed. So more to follow. And if you are a grant writing expert, we may be tapping you on the shoulder to do some reading of our grant to make sure that we have not missed anything. So let's talk about some of the things that have gone on recently. The team has been tremendously busy with events and engagement. We had a fantastic disadvantaged business enterprise meet and greet at our office. This was once again in, I believe, on June 13th. And we invited a number of individual firms to come to our office to hear about the program. And once again, this is what equity looks like in practice, making sure that folks who traditionally would be the last to know and to hear about projects like this, that those companies get a foot in the door and understand the needs and how they may be able to fit in with the work that we are currently doing and the construction work that will be underway in a couple of years. So very successful event. We had the Columbian had their annual economic forecast breakfast, and I had the privilege to sit on the panel. And the main thrust of this was to talk about the Interstate Bridge. And they did a fantastic job of facilitating questions from the audience and allowing the panel to discuss how this bridge is critically important to this area. So that event drew a room full of folks at the Vancouver Hilton, and once again was well received with a lot of great comments and feedback. Also, we have participated in the Port of Vancouver tenant breakfast, which the Port of Vancouver is one of our transportation partners. So we are tremendously supportive, and our our proposed construction will have impact on their properties. So we have been working hand in hand with the Port of Vancouver to make sure that we are minimizing our footprint and impacts to things that they are doing to improve the Vancouver waterfront. We've also had meetings with the Washington State Transportation Commission. As you know, this past legislative session, the Washington legislature passed a bill that allows us to toll the I-5 bridge. And the tolling authority in the state of Washington is the State Transportation Commission. So we will be updating them and following their lead as they work with the Oregon Transportation Commission on deciding what rates will be set and what tolling will look like over the I-5 bridge. So this past Monday, Johnell Bell and myself, we were in Boston. We were invited to speak at Transportation Research Board Conference on transportation asset management. So the thrust of our presentation was, how does equity fit into transportation and asset management overall? So we had a full room and just fantastic questions. Folks kept us for probably a half hour after asking questions about this program. So this was a national audience with a lot of interest in what's happening in the Pacific Northwest and specifically with the IBR program. Other things that that we are doing, our community engagement team that's led by Shannon, it has been busy and out in the communities. You can see this picture. This is one of our great staff members, Brian Stebbins, is answering questions at a booth. And we are all over the place. We took recommendations from this group, the Equity Advisory Group, of where you would like to see the program show up and answer questions. And so I had an opportunity in June to spend 2 well-spent hours with Mayor Ann McInerney-Ogle fielding questions at the Vancouver farmers market on a Saturday afternoon. And once again, people are very supportive of what's going on. They have questions about what it's going to look like. And we had renderings and showing folks, and folks are very excited about the program. So we'll be out all summer. If there are more events that you think we should be a part of, feel free to drop us a note. If you want to help person a booth for us, we will be more than happy to have you as CAG members with our staffers to answer questions. So things that are upcoming, we are going to be instituting IBR staff hours where we will have times where we can have folks come into our office and just look at the work that we're doing and hopefully answer questions as we move the project forward and get beyond. Currently, we're probably at 8 to 10% design. As we start moving that design further, we're going to have folks coming in to sit with us and ask questions. So we think that's going to be a good way to, as a lead in to the draft supplemental environmental document that will be released late this year, and make sure that folks are ready to participate and make their voice heard. So is that my only slide?
It is.
Okay, well, I see, Tom, you had a hand up, and I'll take any questions or concerns that this group may have.
Thank you, but no, that was actually a keystroke mistake on my keyboard.
But subconsciously, you may have a question, and I'd like to
Subconsciously, I'll know what it is later.
I'd like to thank Tom. We had the Bridgeton neighborhood group come into our office and sit with us and share some of their questions and concerns about impacts to the neighborhood, and explain why some of the design looks like it does, and how we may be able to change some of the impacts that will happen to the Bridgeton neighborhood. So those are important meetings, as right now nothing is chiseled in concrete, so to speak. So we can make sure that we are addressing the concerns of the neighborhoods and folks who are impacted by this project. So, but I'll take any questions that you may have. Tom, that question came to you.
No, I just wanted to say thank you, and I would like to thank you for hosting those meetings, and look forward to follow-ups on them. I think the discussions have been great. We've dug into kind of minute details that probably wouldn't be of interest to anybody other than the Bridgeton neighborhood. But you know, Greg and his team have been willing to listen to us on specific questions about where should an exit be located, you know, on an off ramp. Where should that come down at this particular corner, or should that come down at this particular corner? And those conversations, while they don't mean much in the broad bridge conversation, they're very significant when it comes down to the neighborhood level. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have our voices heard. So thank you.
And those are the conversations we look forward to having with all of the neighborhoods that are impacted by this program, and make sure that folks understand, you know, that we're listening, we can make changes to accommodate the best interests of folks who live in the shadow of this program. So one event that I forgot to mention, we just received the invite. So I will actually, I'm sitting in Michigan, but I will be back in Portland this weekend to sit with Senator Merkley, as he is having a community forum out at Gresham High School on Saturday morning. So one of the key topics they want to discuss is the bridge. So I am more than happy to come and share where we're at and what things are going on with the bridge. So that'll be a good opportunity to make the pitch that we need the federal funds now to make this thing happen. So I look forward to that event. Other questions, other concerns? And you guys are easy tonight.
Well, we
You
gave
must
them
not have had your coffee.
We gave them homework, so they're like focused in.
But once again, thanks everybody, and thanks for your continued participation. Zachary, did you get the link? Are you on? Zachary from Oregon Walks is one of our new members, and hopefully he was having trouble receiving a link, but hopefully he's had a chance to log on and join us. So
Greg, you and Sherry nailed it. Thank you, Andrew, too. Apologies for my lateness, folks. I'm Zachary from Oregon Walks, and happy to be here. And I have two children that are rug-ratting around. They are the two animals in my house that are you'll probably hear and see in the background.
Once again, welcome, Zach, and we look forward to your input. So, all right, well, Shannon, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We're going to move into breakout rooms here and talk about the homework that we had shared with you all. And I say it in quotes because, you know, I think you already have answers to these questions. So we just wanted y'all to be thinking about it. So as you'll recall, last month we had a presentation from the bridge design team, and we're really talking about how individual people and scenarios might traverse this bridge, and either by walking or biking, the different ways that modes that folks get around. So we want to go into some breakout rooms to make time for discussion, because last month we completely ran out of time and did not have space for hearing more from CAG members. So we will go into breakout rooms and have 2 questions to talk through, and we can put up slides in the breakout rooms for you all. But just as a reminder, it is, do you agree with the people first approach to design? And what will be important to you as an individual and or organization as we're thinking about design? And Salome has us all set up, so we'll go ahead and move into breakout rooms, and we'll come back here at 4:55. Thank you all. I don't think it matters how much we plan or know that we're going to come back from breakout rooms. It always feels abrupt when it ends. And so I appreciate everyone just bearing with us. Casey, you are on a really good roll. And we will definitely find a way to get that, have that conversation. If we can't finish it today, later in the agenda, we'll come back to it at next CAG for sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm actually going to hand it over now to Casey, who will share his screen to talk about some of the aerial role map, and then make some space for question and answers from CAG members.
Great. I will make my best attempt here to share the right screen. Make sure I can see it, and also my mouse, if I can get a confirmation from anyone vocally. You can see my mouse hovering. Sorry, was that a yes?
It kind of looks like your data is overloading your computer because it keeps flashing.
Yeah, it's kind of strobing.
Oh, no.
We can see part of it, and then the whole, right now the whole thing, but it's still flickering. Okay, now it's better.
I think when you move your, Casey, when you move your mouse, the whole thing refreshes and it takes about 5 seconds for the screen to redraw.
Okay, I will try to avoid using my mouse to point. I'll use my best directions using words. So bear with me as I walk through. That gets a little difficult in directions, but we did walk through the roll plot. I was able to walk through the roll plot in the last meeting. It's a lot of information to go through. What we want to do tonight is just zoom in quickly on that and give that preface to the next session. Walk through Hayden Island specifically.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, could you move your mouse to the left? I think half the screen goes blank when your mouse is on the right hand side of the screen. If you just move it all the way to the left, I think we get a.
How about that?
Yeah, I think that's good. Hold it there.
Let me just try something different real quick. Bear with me for just a moment. See if I have the way I'm sharing is maybe helpful. That's showing the roll plot again.
It is.
All right. How if I move my hand? Does it have a problem? Same problem?
No, that looks much better.
Okay. Well, this is the way I was sharing. So that's my user. Anyway, let's zoom in on Hayden Island a little bit. As most of you are aware of, we have the river crossing itself, just out of context, being replaced downstream. So when you come down off of the river clearance on that bridge, we touch down. Hayden Island is that touchdown place. Also, things to note here, we're building to the side of the existing bridge. We want to be able to do that. It's many years of construction for the bridge. We also have to try to move back into I-5 so we aren't completely rebuilding all of I-5 in different locations. And that comes with challenges of making sure that we keep traffic moving, accessible to all folks, the community, et cetera. So that's one of our big challenges. But touching down on Hayden Island, what does that mean? We have, again, kind of reoriented ourselves to the map. North is to the right, and hopefully zoomed in. You can see Hayden Island very well here. The different colors, you see kind of a bright green, that's the active transportation or shared use paths through the program area. We do have other active transportation on the local systems. You might see them adjacent with these kind of lighter colored lines adjacent to the roads on the local streets. We have a mass transit light rail station with the extension of light rail on Hayden Island on the west side. And you see the local roadway improvements that extend underneath I-5. So the point of walking through those briefly is to just give you a little context of the elevation of things. The local roadways, the east-west roadways, north side, you have Hayden Island Drive. In the middle, you have Tomahawk Island Drive. That's a new extension, not their existing under I-5. And then on the south end of the island, Jansen Drive. All those are at the kind of the ground level, the existing ground level, right? And so I-5, as it goes over the top of Hayden Island, it's a level above. It can't interact with those streets. And same thing with mass transit. Light rail, as it crosses the island, is that level above. We've got a lot more work to do on figuring out how best to connect those both vertically and having the space to get there. Let's talk a little bit about how active transportation works today on the island. I'm going to flip to another screen. Well, I might flip to another screen and see if this works or not. Bear with me just a moment. And all right, there should be a picture of some of these existing facilities as you're on the ground. The upper left, you have standing on Hayden Island. If you look closely and familiar, not a lot of active transportation facilities there. You know, the highway, this is technically roads that are right coming off of the interstate. These are interchange roads. On the left side of the picture is the local road that goes east-west. On the right side of the screen, you actually can barely see it there. There's a bus stop, and that's the part of the off-ramp on the east side of the island. In the lower left, you have the singular active transportation facility that does cross over under I-5. It's not looking too inviting there, dark and kind of down in a hole. And then the lower right is not too dissimilar to that. Also a dark area, you know, not active transportation facilities on both sides of the roads. Conditions are not great for walking, biking, rolling. Dark, and this one's also in a hole. Just wanted to show those briefly to say, you know, what are the things we're doing within the program, and why is it people first in that? I'm going to share back to the other window again real quick. All right, hopefully that's showing up now after I click on yes. Back to the roll plot. And one verbal confirmation with that would be great.
Yes.
Great, excellent. Okay, so active transportation, what are we doing on that? Again, I mentioned the middle roadway, Tomahawk Island Drive. That's an extension so that you have these three east-west routes that essentially permeate I-5. We want to make sure that I-5 isn't that barrier for getting around the island. Why do people make their choices today to say drive to the store today? Well, if you can't walk, or if it's not attractive to walk from one side of the island to the other, if you live close in one of the residential areas and are trying to get to Target, for instance, for some services or medication or a grocery, it's not real attractive to go across there. So the local roadway improvements, east-west, provide those three routes with improved street cross sections and the bike and pedestrian facilities. So sidewalks on both sides and bicycle lanes, making sure people have the options to get there, not only to those services, but also connecting to the transit as it goes across the island. So really the light rail station being kind of that transit hub with a local bus that would connect into that area, as well as the mass transit. And then also, not going to fail to mention on the main line of I-5, of course, we're anticipating bus on shoulder in the median shoulder as well. So another part of getting around is, of course, for active transportation, we have the shared use path that goes north-south. So you want to go to Vancouver or to Portland. We want to make sure that those transportation facilities get connected up with that shared use path. Again, we have a vertical work to do in front of us to make sure that we can connect to those as they get up and to go over the bridge. We anticipate trying to get down at the north end of the island with active transportation from the shared use path, and then as well as somewhere in the middle of the island, so that you've got some choices to get on, to and from the shared use path onto the island. The other part of what people experience today from the island or getting to and from the island is you have to get there using the interstate. Both active transportation is along the interstate and all the vehicles enter through the interstate. You can't get into North Portland without getting on the interstate. What this program is investments do is build an arterial bridge here shown on the east side of North Portland Harbor. That acts as both a local connection to North Portland. Residents, businesses can get on and off the island without touching the interstate. That also provides that active transportation facility that isn't right on the interstate as well. And then that active transportation facility, of course, aiming to connect both with the 40-mile loop trail and then down into Portland using the other facilities that we're connecting with. For vehicles, you've all heard of partial interchange, I think, at this point for Hayden Island. The partial interchange is really talking about the two ramps that touch down on Hayden Island from the interstate.
And
Vehicles that, yeah.
If I can interrupt you for a second.
Yep.
One of the good conversations we had with the Bridgeton neighborhood was the actual location of the active transportation path. On which side of that local bridge would it be to afford the best view of the river and of Mount Hood? So that's something that our team is going to look at to see if we can accommodate that desire to either have it on both sides of the local bridge or flip it over to the outside of the local bridge. So it was a good conversation and a good point that was brought up in that meeting. Thanks, Casey.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. That's really great to point out. Also, we're looking at that path as far as emergency access, but also considering as you go along that path, the use of active transportation facilities today. You have slow pace folks, a little more recreational maybe, and then also a higher speed. So those are things that in coordination with what you just said, Greg, looking at those facilities, how we can best make those opportunities available to the folks. So talking about the ramps for freeway traffic. If you haven't been on the island, I don't know if I'd suggest using the ramps, but you have to today. They're very, very, very short ramps to get up to speed, especially the northbound on-ramp is about 10% of what the length really should be. And by the time you get to the 150-foot length, you're actually meeting the bridge end, and there's also no shoulder. Those types of things are being addressed in the program. You have shoulders and the adequate length for acceleration. But the two ramps coming to and from the north end and on Hayden Island at Jansen Drive, that's the partial interchange. The other way to access the island, of course, from the south is still using, if you still have the interstate access. If you're coming from I-5 in the south end, you actually take the Marine Drive exit, go underneath the interchange, end up at this intersection at the end of the arterial bridge road, and then access Hayden Island. And then the reverse direction, going back underneath the Marine Drive interchange and heading south onto I-5 as well.
Casey,
there are some.
I'm sorry to
yeah.
jump in. I just want to time check a little bit. We're almost at the full time, and I want to make sure we have some time for discussion. And then we just don't know what we have for public comment at the end. So if we could maybe wrap up this piece, and then we'll go to questions from the committee.
I think we're pretty good on. There are some movements that if you're trying to make your way into North Portland, a little bit different. For instance, if you like today you can get from Marine Drive, get on the freeway, and then get off again in both directions because of that auxiliary lane that's there on the freeway and the direct connection. Because those two ramps on the south end aren't there, you have to make your way to Marine Drive. So Shannon, thank you for that check, and I think I can wrap it up. So I guess if there's any time for questions, I'd be available.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Shannon. Can you all hear? Can you all hear me? Okay.
We can.
Okay. I have a message here that said the host has stopped my video. I can see you all, and I can see everything, but I start my video. Okay.
We definitely see an odd icon on your video.
Okay, well, don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm not an odd icon, but you know, I don't mind doing it today. Okay, so just
Thanks,
not worried
Ed.
about it. All right, thanks.
Go ahead, Sam. I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. This actually explains a lot. I'm quite pleased to see all this. Just a suggestion. What I would appreciate is all the use cases. So, day in life. I want to go shopping on Jansen Beach, and then I want to travel further south, or I want to get back on the road and come back up to Washington State. You know, all these possible use cases, or I live in the neighborhood and I want to go south or north or somewhere else. It'd be great if we could have, what would it look like? And it can just be lines on this drawing for each of these use cases. What route would they take and how would the signage work and all that? And will it be, I mean, it looks very complex just looking at the whole thing, but a typical traveler would not be looking at the whole thing. They would look at the directions and their GPS and whatever they use. And what would that look like? And, you know, is it human-centered? Is it easy to use? Or is it going to be like people are on their first trip, are they going to be blocking 5 miles of traffic as a result?
Might just follow up in that we are preparing some videos along the way in the future here that are going to do just that. Walk you through, follow a line as you look at the map and say, this is how you would get from here to here as those examples. So great comment.
Perfect.
Sam.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, and if they come up, we're going to move into the urban design presentation. It's the same focus areas though, so if questions come up, please go ahead and just jot them down. We'll have more discussion after Ben and Nolan finish. So Ben and Nolan, would you like to introduce yourselves and then move into your presentation?
I'll start. I'm Nolan Meinhardt. I'm a principal with CGF Architects and a member of the IBR Urban Design team. I've presented a couple times in front of this group, so it's good to be back.
And I'm Ben Dynas. I'm an architect and urban designer with the IBR Urban Design team.
Thank you.
Great. So we wanted to talk today about Hayden Island and Expo Marine Drive focus areas. We can actually skip to the next slide. As you guys may remember from a presentation we did, I think a couple months back on the urban design process, we're kind of using focus areas to describe or to organize the way that we're approaching the urban design work. Get to the next slide. Great. So this map may be familiar, but this is just the IBR corridor broken into these individual focus areas, largely surrounding kind of neighborhoods and light rail stations and things like that that sort of tie them together as a single sort of place that we want to understand holistically. So kind of starting at the south end there, we have the Victory Boulevard near the Delta Park Station and potential active transportation, local street connectivity improvements there. Today, we're going to be talking about Expo Marine Drive focus area, which includes Expo and Bridgeton and the interchange in that area. And then Hayden Island has its own focus area we'll be talking about today. And then just so you're kind of aware of the other ones, the bridge design will kind of have its own piece. And then there's similarly 3 focus areas in Washington at the Vancouver waterfront, at the Evergreen Library Square, which is where the terminus of the light rail station, the terminus of the light rail extension will be. And then kind of the areas north of Evergreen where there will be active transportation and local street connectivity improvements. And then also corridor-wide, we're considering climate and equity, each individually as their own kind of lenses for the corridor as a whole. The next slide. Okay, so as we're looking at these focus areas, we just kind of want to orient ourselves and remind ourselves that we're going to be talking about the program itself and the program elements and the way that those program elements interface with the local context. But then we're also within these focus areas, we're talking about that local context itself. And so that is kind of per existing conditions, what's out there today, and local plans, what's planned there for the future. So all that is to say, when we're talking about these urban design focus areas, they include both the program and the context that will inform the program. Next. And then I think these diagrams are probably familiar as well. We talked when we went through the urban design process about the sort of range of scales that we're going to be working at. Previously, we were talking about sort of the extra large and the large scale. So what are the regional considerations, and what is the sort of how do we understand the program at the sort of corridor scale? Today, we're really going to be focusing in kind of to the next, zooming into the next level at the medium scale, where we're really talking about the focus areas, kind of more of a neighborhood scale. And then as we get further into the program, probably end of this year, early next year, we're going to get into the place scale, where we can start to get specific about, where is there vertical circulation to and from a station, or how do these two specific streets connect? So talking about focus areas today. Next. And so we have a couple questions for you. We just wanted to kind of frame these here so you guys could be thinking about them as we talk through each of the focus areas, but then we'll come back to them at the end to have a little bit more of a discussion. So the two questions, and there's certainly some overlap here, but what specific themes or values should inform the urban design of these focus areas? So on the right there are just some examples of some of the themes that we've been using to frame the way that we're thinking about, the elements of the program. So what's the design character? That was something I heard a lot about in the breakout group. What are the experiential qualities? Sustainability, equity, those are important issues. So sort of how do we think about those themes and values? And then are we understanding the character and relevant elements in your community that the IBR program should respond to? So this is getting back to when we're talking about these focus areas, that they include both the program, but also the context that the program is responding to and fitting into. And so we want to make sure, as we're sort of talking about these focus areas, that we get input from the community to understand, are we understanding these areas correctly from the perspective, that's important to the community. Next. Okay, so we're going to talk about Hayden Island to start, and talk about that as a focus area, and then we'll move over to Expo next. So again, kind of coming back to, this is the way that we're starting to think about these focus areas. We want to frame that and kind of talk about it and make sure that we're understanding it kind of from the perspective of the community. So there's a range of kind of character zones on Hayden Island. There is open space to the west. There's some industrial areas. There's sort of a range of different residential types on the island, from mobile home and then the floating homes in North Portland Harbor, and then sort of the more suburban character on the east side of the island. There's of course the Jansen Beach Supercenter in orange on there. And then there's this kind of unique typology at the middle of the island that's sort of the freeway, what we're calling freeway adjacent typology. But it's sort of thinking about this character in terms of, there's the floor and decor. A lot of that space is actually interchange functions, or the landscape that sort of surround those interchange functions. Auto-oriented uses like gas stations. There's the hotel in that area, of course, as well. So next slide. We'll dive into these each individually a little bit more. So again, kind of thinking about some of these different characters. On the left there, kind of a couple different residential characters. There's the mobile home park, and then Schauer Avenue. So this is all on the on the west side of the island. So kind of those residential typologies. And then on the right, a couple images of Jansen Beach Center, and in particular, the streetscape there that has been recently updated to City of Portland street standards. So starting to sort of think about how that might fit into more of a urban street grid on Hayden Island. Next. And then on the east side of Hayden Island, kind of thinking about the character zones over there, there's of course North Portland Harbor itself and the floating homes and the boat docks there. Jansen Drive right now is a pretty low underpass connecting on the south end of the island, across the south end of the island. Tomahawk Island Drive on the east side, so this is this kind of more suburban character that we were talking about before, some kind of more medium density residential in that area. And then of course the Holiday Inn is a significant landmark on the island. Next. So when we were talking about sort of the context, you'll remember we've talked about what are the existing conditions and what are the future plans for this area. So we kind of were just talking about what is the existing conditions, what are the character that's out there now of the neighborhood and the streetscapes. And so this is taking that next step of, okay, how is it being envisioned for the future, for development and planning into the future. So this is the Hayden Island plan. This actually came out of the previous sort of life of the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, which was known as the Columbia River Crossing. So this you'll see the kind of dashed line going down to the middle on the west side of the interstate there. Then there's a T that represents a transit station. So there was, when this plan was created, it was envisioning an extension of the light rail system. You'll see kind of on the south end, there's envisioning new transit-oriented development. So maybe some higher density kind of development there. In red is the regional retail center. So that's kind of a similar use to what's there now with the Jansen Beach Center, kind of an auto-oriented retail center. And then on the east side is envisioned to be more of a neighborhood retail center that might serve more of the island community itself. And then on the north end, you can see there's envision the potential for a park or some sort of open space kind of under and on either side of the bridge. Okay, so now that we've sort of framed all that, we want to dive into the focus areas, kind of framing, we're calling these focus area plans, so that we're kind of trying to frame all of the urban design issues within each of these focus areas, and really trying to think about them holistically. So what are all the issues that are overlapping and that we need to consider as we advance the design? So you'll see the kind of orange bar there, that's the station location. That's where we're showing it here is where it's shown in the LPA, but there is still some a range of sort of location of where that station might end up. Maybe it's a little bit further north to the north of the island to maybe serve that end. Maybe it's more to the over Tomahawk Island Drive, so that it provides balanced access to both sides of the island. So kind of thinking about that, where that could be. And then the yellow area is station access. So of course there'll be, since this is right now designed to be an elevated station, there would be some sort of plaza that would provide access to vertical circulation. So ramps, stairs, elevators, that type of thing that would bring people up to the station level. And then also sort of connectivity north-south to provide access to the station. So along Center Avenue, you can see there's sort of that yellow that would connect Hayden Island Drive and Tomahawk Island Drive. But then we're also envisioning a pedestrian-only connection to Jansen Drive, so that there's sort of this direct access from the floating home community to the station. Casey talked a little bit about Hayden Island Drive and Tomahawk Island Drive and Jansen, and so that's what the blue arrow, the cyan arrows are there. Sort of those are the main east-west connections that we see across the island, across the freeway. And just important to note that Tomahawk Island Drive is not a connection today. There is a Tomahawk Island Drive on either side, but it doesn't connect through the freeway. So that would be a new connection that would come with the program on the island. You'll see the kind of bus icons there. Those are different potential locations for where bus service might occur. It's not just an or, it might be and or, could be multiple different locations. you'll see the shared use path. I think Casey kind of explained that, but right now we're showing that it's coming across the arterial bridge and then continuing across the main river crossing. And then last, I'll just flag the sort of land use shading that we have. So the purple is where there's potential future development for those local plans that we were looking at for the Hayden Island plan. And then the green is open space, again, potentially open space per that Hayden Island plan. So before going on to Expo, we wanted to pause here at the Hayden Island focus area plan and just see if there are any questions or comments.
So we have Tom and then Martha.
Thank you. I was wondering whether that 2009 Hayden Island plan that you showed in the previous slide, is that the most current Hayden Island plan available? And have you coordinated with the Hayden Island people to kind of get an updated view of their feelings about the information on this plan?
So I think I can take that. It is the most updated Hayden Island plan adopted by Portland City Council. So as the city's document for land use and transportation, it's what we have to go on. And it would be, for them to lead if there was an initiative to consult and update it.
Thank you.
I will just add briefly for CAG members, and I apologize if this was said, my audio went out for a moment, but there is active work to schedule and coordinate with the neighborhood associations in each of these areas for the same presentation to come there, so additional community members can see it and provide feedback. Martha.
Yeah, you showed a slide earlier that had that showed how low and dark the overpasses were. Now you're talking about putting more things underneath the new road and under the new freeway. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts about the height between the new undercrossing and the bottom of the bridge. Or maybe I'm getting too far into the future, in which case just say, no, we'll get to that later. That's okay.
So I think we will get to it later, and we'll be able to start describing both what the considerations are for height. Some of the bridge design conversations influence that. Casey, if there's any sort of rules of thumb that you want to describe about how that gets set, that might be helpful.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it actually, Nolan. Is there's more conversation coming, of course, with the bridge discussions, but also just knowing that there is at least a minimum height there to make sure that the trucks can get underneath without getting stuck. But then from there, there's more discussions to be had about what is going to be under there as far as how we can treat that and make it the most attractive.
And I can't remember if Ben said this at the top, but this is really our opportunity to sort of look at the context of these focus areas and talk about what some of the issues are. We'll come back to you for subsequent conversations about what the ideas are about how we might address these issues and the program elements in these spaces.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add one more thing is I think that's what Ben's presentation is getting at is we'll have different levels and heights depending on which bridges we're looking at, but the purpose we're talking about with urban design is no matter where it is underneath the bridge areas, if we have the areas, we're trying to make sure that we're using the areas, whether it's for active transportation or something else, and make sure that it's inviting enough and not the dark space that we see today underneath the bridge. And those are the options we'll be looking at and where we need input on if there are other ideas that you see.
Thank you all. Anything else from CAG members? All right, seeing none, I will hand it back over to you, Ben and Nolan.
Thanks. So we'll have a similar conversation here about the Expo Marine Drive focus area. So again, kind of thinking about this character zones, a little bit more, different character than the island community of Hayden Island, of course, in that it does connect to the sort of more typical fabric of Portland. You can see in the lower left in the southwest corner there, Kenton, with kind of more typical residential urban fabric of North Portland there. And then there's kind of an industrial area on either side of the slough. We have the retail center at Hayden Meadows. Lots of different sort of unique kind of open space uses with Delta Park, Vanport Wetlands, the Heron Lakes Golf Course, and of course the Portland International Raceway. More industrial, of course, along the river, along North Portland Harbor, as you get closer to kind of to the port to the west there. And then there's the Bridgeton neighborhood, of course, that we're going to be connecting to, and Expo Center itself, which is an important kind of destination and landmark for the area. Next. So again, diving into each of these a little bit more in the way that we're kind of understanding them. There's the Bridgeton neighborhood, which is of course a combination of both houseboats, or floating homes, I should say, and kind of lower to medium density residential along the riverfront. And then there is, of course, the proposed Bridgeton Promenade that we're going to be thinking about and how to connect to. That'll provide some unique character to that neighborhood. And then on the right there is Delta Park. Obviously, it's got kind of a sports facility focus. And that, as we'll talk about a little bit later, there's maybe a future at the expo that might kind of expand on that. Next. And then there's on the west side of the freeway, there's Expo Station and the Voices of Remembrance public art installation that's associated with that station, and with the Expo Center and the role that the Expo Center had in the history of internment of Japanese Americans during the Second World War. So definitely going to be thinking about this particular light rail station as it's currently the terminus of the light rail line, but will become the extension of light rail into the future, and sort of thinking about what that means for the character of that station, and also for the character and the use of the Expo Center itself. Next. And this is similar to the images that Casey was showing, just to kind of think of a little bit more about what these facilities are, and in particular the existing active transportation facilities in this area. So on the left there is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard with a buffered bike lane and a sidewalk on the east side. And then on Expo Road there on the right, where it's a shared roadway where bicycles can basically use the same lanes as vehicular traffic, or they can use the sidewalk, the attached sidewalk there. So just to kind of think about what those are right now and how those might how we're connecting to the existing network. And then again, kind of thinking about what are the existing conditions, but also what's the future of this place. So Metro did a study on the future of the Expo Center and what the use might be for that site. And they are moving forward with, they looked at a number of different themes. So they were, logistics campus, innovation hub, different things like that. So the one that they landed on was a sports facilities campus. And again, this is kind of to create a regional sports facility location that, in and of its own right, but also to potentially connect to and expand on what's happening at Delta Park. So just to kind of think about, this is going to be the future of this site and being next to the future station there. Next. Okay, so again, looking at using a focus area plan to kind of organize the urban design elements that we're going to be considering in this area.
I'm not taking the map. Come, let's go.
So in this case, the LPA is showing the station, the existing station as being updated to become what is currently a terminus station to become a through station. So that'll change the character of the station from being kind of a terminus that's next to a parking lot to being a through station that's adjacent to a street. So that'll really kind of change the way that it functions and how people access the station. So that yellow kind of band there again is station access. So that's going to be some combination of sidewalks and potentially small ramps or things like that to provide access to the station. It's currently a 3-track station with 2 different platforms, and with once it becomes a through station, the 3rd track will no longer be needed, and that westernmost platform may change use in some ways. I mentioned that 3rd track going away. Part of what would happen with that space is it would actually provide a track to access a overnight facility. What's being proposed is an overnight facility, so not a full operations and maintenance facility, but a light rail, a place where they can clean and do light maintenance on light rail vehicles overnight. Again, the cyan arrows are kind of talking about the main east-west connections across I-5, a little more complicated than on Hayden Island. There's going to be both active transportation facilities associated with Martin Luther King Boulevard and Marine Drive as it connects over. The primary access that we're seeing would be under via Pier 99 Street, so kind of under, that's the line to the north there, that would go under the bridge. That would connect across to connect the shared use path and the Bridgeton neighborhood, and would have a connection to the future Bridgeton Promenade on the east side, and then on the west side it would connect to the 40-mile loop and the transit station and Expo Road to the south. Again, you'll see a couple different potential bus locations, bus transfer locations, and then something that's kind of unique about this focus area, you'll see that the sort of dashed arrowhead line in gray there, those represent the levees. And although the levees are not specifically part of the IBR program, there is another project underway called Levee Ready project, where those are going to be updated. And so the IBR program is updating kind of the grading considerations, the civil considerations for the IBR design to make sure that's coordinated with the Levee Ready project work. And again, the purple and green kind of represent potential future land uses. So the pink kind of in the Expo area where there might be, potentially some expansion of what's happening there, and then the Bridgeton Promenade and 40-mile loop along the rivers of Portland Harbor. So I'll pause again here, ask if there are any questions about this focus area or the items on the focus area plan.
I don't see any hands or anyone coming off mute, Ben, so I think we can move into your question. Oh, Tom's hand. Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, just trying to decide how to couch my question and I don't want to get into too many like minuscule details, but where I see the bike ped line that comes along the roundabout at the lower right-hand corner, coming from Pier 99 Street around to the roundabout, and then it joins to go across the bridge that's in the darker green. That doesn't actually take into account the fact that there's the Vancouver Way roadway in the way. So there's a cross under or a crossover that's not indicated here that I've been concerned about in the past. And in one of my conversations with my meeting with Greg was to ask that question: how was that thought to be resolved? And this particular graphic seems to sort of wash over that issue, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that particular connection.
So just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So right now, let's say you're coming from the expo station and you want to go up to Hayden Island.
On your bicycle.
You'd be going on your bicycle, right? You'd be going along Pier 99 Street. And then Pier 99 Street would go under the I-5 bridges and under the arterial bridge.
So I'm following you so far, yeah.
Yep, okay. So then it loops around on the roundabout, and then the shared use path and the arterial bridge go up and over Pier 99.
Yes, but where the line changes from blue to green, and you have one line going to the east on Vancouver Way or Marine Drive, it connects directly to the green, but there's actually a roundabout exit there that is Vancouver Way heading to the southeast. That this assumes that the bike simply crosses the middle of the road there. I assume that you're just
I think you'd have a standard pedestrian bike shared use path crossing of the roadway.
Okay.
Which
I would have thought a roundabout would assume that there's you wouldn't want that at a roundabout because of the traffic. You want the traffic to keep moving and exiting there. I would think you'd want
it's pretty common
bridge
to
or a
have
tunnel.
pedestrian crossings
Hang
of
on.
roundabout
Sorry,
ways.
hang on, folks. I see Shilpa came off mute. Shilpa, do you want to address that briefly?
Yeah, I can do that. Tom, those are details we have not showing here, and those are details we still have to work out. There will be a crossing, whether it's for pedestrians or for bikes, and there are ways to cross them. We wouldn't want them going like across the street. Like the cars will still be moving. Again, assuming this is a roundabout, this is going to be an intersection. We're assuming it's a roundabout right now, but we haven't gotten to the stage to say this is absolutely a roundabout or absolutely a signal. But whatever it is, we can't just have them cross from the middle of the street. We'd have to figure out a safe way for them to cross if they have to cross Vancouver Way over there. And this just doesn't show those details, and those are the details we need to still like flesh out.
That's kind of what I was thinking, that was perhaps too sort of a granular question to be asking. Another one I have though is
good question though.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the stormwater retention plan at all in terms of these spaces and how that will consume the available property for other amenities. So perhaps we could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I could quickly touch on that. No, we're not talking about this, but I know Ben has this session or the other session just talking about from that urban design perspective. But in general, we are just starting to identify where they might be. And a first option is to look at the existing right-of-way that the DOTs have, whether it's in between interchanges, areas that we can already use. And that should be, that's where we'll be first looking at. And we are analyzing those areas in the draft SEIS, the preliminary thing. And again, if we need more than that, that's when we need to talk about it. Are we looking at, we need more area? Can we not fit in with the right of way? And that has to go through the regular process, like the right of way process, if we need more than that. But at this time, we're identifying all the areas in between the interchanges, anywhere else that we have DOT property, and then going from there.
Thank you.
But today, you're right. Today, none of the water is treated in the entire program area, and we'll have to treat the bridge, the roadway, all 5 miles of it.
Thank you. Any other questions from CAG members? And Salome, just double checking if we have any public comment, and if not, we can bring up the discussion questions.
No public comment of yet.
Thank you. So any other questions for CAG members, or are we ready to move into these? Okay, seeing none. Ben Nolan, go ahead.
Yeah, so we just wanted to come back to these these questions, and we'll be thinking about these again as we think more about, as we come back and talk about other focus areas in the future. We'll be hopefully next month we can talk about some of the focus areas in Vancouver at the waterfront and Evergreen. But as we think about these focus areas, are there specific themes or values that we should be thinking about that will inform the urban design? And then again, are we understanding the character and the relevant elements of your community that we should be responding to?
And I think we heard some of that from Tom for sure, that we want to make sure is on, which we have in the notes, and we'll make sure is on everyone's radar. Tom, go ahead.
I just wanted to say very quickly that the specific theme for these areas would be quality of life for the communities in which the bridge is residing. I don't know how to define that better than that.
Thank you. Lynn.
It just seemed to me when I looked at the list of potential themes and values that I think those were likely pulled from our initial vision and values documents that those of us who've been around for 2.5 years, convened and agreed on. So I think I think they all need to be incorporated. I think the challenge will be with every element, it will likely be differential. Right. But I didn't see anything there that I'd say only this or not that.
If I could, Shannon, if we have a moment. That's a great comment, Lynn. We will always strive to address all of these issues. One of the things I think we're most interested in is, are there focus areas where some of those stand out more than others because of the existing conditions, because of the kind of land uses that exist there, or because of the opportunities that are presented by introducing these program elements. So think about that, not that we're raising some above others, but just it's helpful for us to hear if you feel that there's a particular opportunity or risk in some of these.
Specifically with regard to the Hayden Island
or Expo, beach. Or when we start getting into Vancouver.
Ed, go ahead.
How did you know I wanted in?
Well, because you raised your hand, sir.
Oh, see, it's not reflecting on my screen. That's why I wondered how did you know, because I didn't see. I just thought you were very magical. I just one quick question that when they were talking about the MLK road section from basically north all the way down. Now, did someone say that? Did you say there are going to be bikes on that road as well as car traffic?
There will be active transportation facilities on the MLK to Marine Drive roadway. Yep.
And so active meaning there will.
Sorry,
meaning bike and pedestrian.
Okay.
I want to clarify, they're not on the road. There'll be facilities just like off the road. So they're not sharing
the
roadway with the vehicles. So there'll be facilities along the roadway or on the same path. Yes.
Because that MLK stretch of road from the north all the way down to Columbia Boulevard, I think it's one of the worst sections of road for traffic. Cars come down that road just barreling. And so I would hope that whatever they do, that they really make it safer for bikers and pedestrians, because it's even when you're coming up in the area where Bill Prouse's office is located, when you come up that rampway there to merge onto MLK, I mean, you got to turn completely around in your car because people are coming south on Vancouver. Sometimes they're doing 60, 65 miles an hour. So I hope that you all will really I hope that they will look at that carefully and make it right, fix it up so that it's safe for people to be on that road. Okay. Maybe other people don't experience it, but I have. It's very dangerous. And I think this is the time we should fix it. Not after everything is done and we have to come back and have another meeting about it. They ought to do it now.
Thanks, Ed. That is, we hear you, and we completely agree. So we will have active transportation of for like bike and ped that is separated from the roadway, because Marine Drive, MLK is so busy, and it's also a truck route. So we want the facilities to be safe and have the space. But not only that, we're also looking at, you notice the other, what Casey showed before, we're looking at bike and ped facilities even off of MLK on the parallel local streets. So people have an option and don't have to be on MLK if they want to ride or walk along the roadway and to get to the destinations. But
I quickly interject that stretch is also known for street racing at 2 a.m.
Okay. Yeah.
So I do want to hang on. I do want to make space for folks who also haven't had a chance to speak yet. So Ed, if you want to wrap up, then it's Michaela and then Bill.
Okay. I'm wrapped up.
Thank you. Go ahead, Michaela.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really something of focus within, this Hayden Island area specifically is like mitigating environmental impacts, just because there is, a lot of greenery right off of the North Portland Harbor Bridge, as well as on Hayden Island specifically. So just I think that really needs to remain a focus in this area in particular, just because of, the natural resources that this particular stretch of land carries. And I think that really needs to remain a focus. And then next month, as we head into talking about the Vancouver side, I think that the historical aspects really need to remain a centerpiece for that particular part of the program area, just in terms of, the fort, the indigenous impacts that it can have. I think that really focusing on that on the Vancouver side, as well as the environmental side on the Oregon side of the project as well.
Thank you, Michaela. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah.
You're on mute,
like
Bill.
you're
I'm
on
sorry,
mute.
we can't hear you.
I thought I had him muted. Maybe I'm muted.
We
Sorry.
got you now.
Anyway, I won't take very long because I didn't unmute myself, but Ed basically said what I was thinking too. But that entrance that he was talking about, I use every day, and it's right behind my window, about 100 yards up the hill here. And people do come barreling down there so fast. I have to really speed up to get out there to make sure that I can get on there safely. But I think the further we can keep the pedestrian and bicycles away from actually that, because it's also now become more of a freight corridor because of all the freight that's been being delivered here out of Delta Park and the Amazon, three big places there, plus the trucking and all that. MLK is a big corridor for freight delivery and drop off too. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Any other feedback or reflections from CAG members before we move to wrap up today? All right. Jake, could you pull the slides back up for us, please? Well, I probably didn't need that. I thought we had some next steps, but that's okay. Oh, thanks. Yeah. So what's next? We've got Equity Advisory Group on the 17th, so on Monday. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 10th, and then the next Equity Advisory Group would be on the 21st of August. So please stay tuned for more info for your next meeting, but also encourage you as you can to watch or attend Equity Advisory Group. And with that, I will hand it over to our amazing co-chairs, Lynn and Ed, to help wrap us up and give any final thoughts.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone, for actively engaging and voicing not only your preferences, but those of the communities that you represent. I do just want to point out and highlight that at our next meeting, which is the August 10th from 4 to 6, we're going to be doing a deep dive into urban design, the Vancouver waterfront and Evergreen. So for those of us that are having to choose between competing events, I just want to say that's one that If that's something that speaks to you, you'll want to make sure that you make that a priority. And with that, I just want to thank everyone. And we have some of the best weather we get all year. So hopefully you have enough time to get out and enjoy it. Ed, if you have anything to say, chime in.
Lynn, if I could chime like a chime, I would. But you said so well and so beautiful. I can't. I'm speechless.
Such a gentleman. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to the IBR staff who's done a great job of just pointing out all of the technical and trying to translate it for us. We appreciate all of you. And with that, have a lovely evening, everyone.
Right. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Everyone.